Hello, hello, hello. How's it going, everyone? I've been wanting to make one of these videos for a really long time, but I've just been putting it off over and over. I usually share these on like social media, but I wanted to go on ahead and do an Overwatch 2 tier list. This is for early season 13. This is of course just my personal opinion. I'm not really all that super experienced or highly ranked. I'm in the metal ranks, so you know, just my opinion. Feel free to let me know what you feel yourself down below if you'd like. But without further ado, let's go on ahead and jump into it. I've shared again pictures of tier lists, but I haven't actually done a deep dive and talking about it. So I'm gonna yap. It's gonna be fun, and it's actually gonna be different from the one I shared just about a week ago. So we'll start with the tanks. Obviously, I don't really gotta explain how this goes. S means meta, D means like garbage, B is good, the whole 9 yards. So first off, we have Doom. Doom, I think he's okay. I don't think he's bad at all. In fact, I almost want to bump up Doom to B tier. He's been actually performing a lot better than I thought he was going to originally. Again, the first tier list I put out of this season was a really early gut instinct reaction type of tier list. I always usually correct it by mid-season, and sometimes I even do a third one by the end of the season. I'm actually going to bump up Doom. I'm going to give him a low B. I think he's actually kind of good. I don't think he's bad. I do think he obviously struggles against certain comps like Orisa, Mauga, and Hog, but if you are a good Doom player, and I know you can say this with any hero, if you're good enough with them, you can make value happen. Doom, is in probably one of his better states just at the base core of his kit. The overhealth, the slower decay, the ult being better. He is really good at securing kills if you know how to play him right. He can be really good at menacing the backline and soloing out squishies, but I would say he's probably a low B. I think he's kind of good. He's fairly solid, but I wouldn't give him any higher than a B. You could even argue a C, which is situational to me. So we'll put Doom there to start, and we're gonna get the hard hitter out of the way. Orisa is S tier. Orisa is the meta tank across like all ranks. I feel there's just a ton of Orisa. Everybody's playing Orisa. If people start losing, they usually pull out Orisa, and you might be thinking, well, how did Orisa get here? She was like not that good just a little bit ago. Well, the micro buffs. She got a lot of micro buffs. She got a increased. She got a buff that increased the damage of her javelin spears direct impact. She got her speed reduction, or her slow duration reduced when in fortify, so she moves basically normal again, it feels. She also got cooldown reductions for like her spin, and this is on top of the fact that fortify is just insane. She still has no fall off range or fall off, like doesn't have any damage fall off, and she's got tons of CC. Her ultimate charges faster, like when you whip it, when you spin the spear and you whip it around, you charge it up faster. The ult charge itself hasn't changed as far as getting the ult, but yeah, Orisa is she's just insane. She's really strong, she's super durable, super tanky, and probably one of the easier tanks to play. And she shuts down a lot of tanks, including Doom. She also, I would say, shuts down Ball, and she can shut down Rein, Hog, you name it. So Orisa's meta. She's going to stay meta until they nerf her again. She's just way too good right now, so definitely the meta tank is Orisa. Diva's pretty good. She's actually not bad at all. I'm going to give her like a high B. I think Diva's pretty good. She's really solid again at soloing out squishies. Probably better than Doom. Just diving at them and blowing them up with micro missiles. DM is still a really good ability. She's still pretty good in a number of matchups tank-wise. But I would say that Diva, definitely is not the Titan that she was last season, and definitely in season 11 when she was meta. The less base health overall and the reduction of armor and the change to armor has hurt Diva a little bit in terms of durability, but offensively she's still very strong. So I'd say a very solid high B. You could even argue A, to be honest, but I'm going to say B. Excuse me, by the way, I just ate not too long ago. Moving on from that, also, quick mic check. I want to make sure that, okay, it is working. Moving on to Ball, I'm gonna keep it a buck. I really don't think Ball's that good. I'm gonna give Ball a D tier, which is just, I said garbage, but it ranges from garbage to just really rough to play. Ball is actually not a garbage hero. He actually has a pretty good kit right now. Um, his he hasn't changed at all since he got those slew of buffs from like late season 10 to mid season 11. But the issue is that there's just so much CC in the meta. Like Orisa is really good, Cass is really good. May's really strong. Rat is actually a lot better, and Ana's being played a lot, and Ana's amazing against Ball. I just don't really think that Ball is like worth playing right now in terms of trying to grind up rank. Obviously, at the end of the day, you play who you want, and I'm not saying you can't even play Ball. You could play anyone and make things happen. This isn't like top 500 pro play level elo or anything like that, but I do think that Ball struggles a lot right now this season. You can make an argument for C tier, but I personally am going to put him in the D tier. I just don't think he's really that good. Too much CC, really hard to get value with him. His kit is still good though, so if you are a good Ball player, you can make it work for sure, but I'm going to put him in the D tier. Moving on to Winton. I had Winton in the B tier, so far the changes I made is I moved Doom up to B from C. These other three have stayed the same. I'm actually spicy hot take. I'm going to move Winton to the A tier. Low A tier, though. I think he's great. I think he's actually a great tank. And he still can be played really well, even against Orisa comps, and actually can be played pretty well into Mauga comps as well, because what you essentially do is you ignore them. Ignore the horse, ignore the Mauga, just go for the rest of their team, get the support, get the squishies. And if you're a good enough Winton player, you can absolutely make it work. Like, Winton's still a really, really good tank. Really great, honestly. And what's convinced me to bump up to A tier is I think he honestly is better than D.Va. He can do what you usually would do on D.Va, but the thing is Winton can get out way easier with the short cooldown on jump, bubble for mitigation. And I just think Winton's really good. I think he's great. It is a little bit tough for Winton because you are seeing more Hog as well, and Hog is really good against Winston. But I'm still going to give Winton the low A for now. That could change. Sigma, I think Sigma is actually pretty good too. I had him at A tier last time I shared a tier list. Again, about a week ago. I might be overrating Sigma. I'm a little biased, I won't lie. Sigma's my favorite tank. But I just don't think Sigma, I don't know. He's such a safe pick to me. And he's always going to have great maps. And he, just has a really, he's kind of a jack of all trades. Jack of all but master of none in a way. Great mitigation, great burst damage, really good ultimate, good cooldowns, a good cycling of them. The only thing he really sucks at is mobility, but he's a poke tank, so you don't really, you're not trying to be a mobile Sigma. I think he's a great tank right now. Again, he's pretty okay. He can survive against Orisa. It's a bit tough against Orisa, but he's really good against Mauga. Pretty good against Hog if you play him right. So I would say the Sig is like a mid-low A. He's solid. He's really, really good. He's great, actually. A tier is great to me, so yeah. I would give Sigma an A tier. Just does a lot of everything really well. And I think it'll only get better as the meta develops, because it's kind of becoming the sustainy tanky meta. So we'll give Sigma A. Ramatra, this is one I went back and forth on. So he's not D tier. If you didn't know, he got a big change, quite a brutal killing of his identity and a net nerf, in my opinion, where he can no longer punch through barriers, but he breaks barriers way easier. Now, there's actually certain matchups that he's a lot better in. One is Winston, another is Zarya. He's actually really good against Zarya now, but he's worse against Rein, against Sigma, and the other tanks don't have shields, so I guess it doesn't really matter there. I think that Ramatra is not bad, but I do think he's kind of situational. He can be really good in situations, but the simple fact of the matter is he's unfortunately fallen into that shtick where why play Ram when you can play ABC instead? If you're looking for good poke, you just play Sigma or Orisa. If you're looking for really heavy brawl, you might as well just play Rhine. You might as well just play Queen. You may as well just play Mauga even. Um, I think that Ramattra unfortunately really does hurt from that nerf, from that change, and it ultimately feels like a net nerf. He's still good though. He's not bad. He is a bit situational though, in my opinion. So he's gonna fall into the pretty mid to high C. You can make a good case for B, but I'm gonna give him C tier. Mauga might be overrating, but I'm actually gonna give Mauga a pretty solid A tier. I think the Mauga, he got a micro buff where his burn effect lasts a second longer. That in of itself isn't really that huge of a buff, but it does open the door for a number of things. More time for lifesteal, more damage to potentially get cheeky kills on people. Granted, it's not that big of a buff, but the simple fact of the matter is it's allowing you to play more Mauga. The big thing keeping Mauga in check is that Orisa is so good. And when Orisa fortifies, Mauga can't lifesteal, he can't crit off her, so that buff is essentially useless. But Grand Sigma's still really good against him, D.Va's still pretty good against him. I think that Mauga, I might be overrating him. You could probably even make a case for, actually, I'm going to move Mauga a little bit. I'm going to move him below Sigma, and I'll move him below Winton. We'll do that. I'm going to put Mauga a bit lower on the A tier, but I do think he's great right now. I do think that I can't put Mauga in B because I have been seeing a lot more Mauga, and he's definitely been performing a lot better, I feel, in my opinion. So Mauga's going to go into the A. I don't even know if I'd say low A, but I said Winton was low A. We'll say low A, regardless. But yeah, Mauga, really, really good. I think that when Orisa gets nerfed, Mauga has the very good chance of taking over if Sigma doesn't. So we're going to put Mauga right here in the low A. I think he's quite good right now. Pretty dang strong. Zarya. I don't think Zarya is really that good right now. I'm going to put her in C tier. I think she's situationally, she can be pretty strong. She's your quintessential pub stomper tank. Like, you just pick her when you're just the better player and you run it down with a high beam and you kill everyone. That's basically Zarya in a nutshell. And she's really good against D.Va. Pretty actually good against Orisa if you play her right. But the issue, though, is that Zarya is just... she really is easy to beat when you really just take down one of two strats. That's kill the rest of her team and take her out last, because it doesn't matter how much charge she has if her whole team is dead, or you aggressively go aggro and blow the bubbles up, which Ramattra can do a lot better now. Ryan's really good against her. Winton, Mauga are very good against Zarya. Hog is even pretty good against Zarya. It's a little annoying, but Hog is pretty decent against Zarya. And yeah, I just don't think Zarya is really that strong right now. So she's not bad, but she's situational. If they have a really good D.Va, you can run it with Zarya. If they have if you're confident enough and they have an Orisa, you could probably pull out Zarya. But other than that, I don't really think there's a whole lot of... Zarya's okay against Sigma too, but I think that Zarya is just, really easy to blow up and get out of position. Doesn't have good mobility. She really is just kind of the tank you pull out when you know you're the better team and they just can't do anything about you, and you just run them all down. You smurf them, basically. Junker Queen. I think Junker Queen's actually pretty dang good right now, and I think I underrated her. I had her at C tier a week ago. I'm going to move her up to mid B. Very solid. I think that Queen is really good. She has a really strong kit with her lifesteal and the bleed effect. Her ultimate's amazing. I think that playing her methodically, using good cover, knowing when to run in and rush, and managing your cooldowns well, on top of her just feeling a lot better to play, and she's already so fun. Excuse me. Sorry about that. I think that Queen is a really darn good tank right now. I think that she complements that rush comp well. The only issue for Queen is that other tanks do give her a hard time. Mauga, being one. Orisa, especially, is another. Hog and Rhine are pretty good into Queen. Actually, Zarya is good into Queen as well, but still, even though Queen does have tough matchups, she is actually so efficient in of herself that I think she's in a good spot. I think she's in a pretty darn good spot. So I think that B is a perfect spot for her. Moving on to Ryan. Ryan, I think, has taken a hit this patch, this season. I think he's taken a pretty darn big hit. Not from the nerf to his shield, that's actually inconsequential to me, but the armor change and the meta shift. Orisa bullies Ryan. And so Ryan just naturally is going to fall down. I'm going to put him actually... I'll actually put him below Queen, but above Doom. I think that's a fair spot for Ryan. Yeah, the issue for me with Ryan is just... It's really hard for him to play the game in these mega CC heavy comps, specifically Orisa. Orisa just absolutely takes Ryan to the farm because it's really hard for Ryan to, get value. Like, you want to charge and pin, fortify, or javelin spear. You want to shatter, fortify. You want to fire strike, javelin spin. You want to swing, fortify. He really can't do much of anything against Orisa. Because Orisa is so good, whenever Orisa is really good, Ryan suffers, unfortunately. That being said, Ryan is still a very good tank and still has a really strong kit between all the buffs he's gotten since Season 10, I think is when they started to buff him. So yeah, we give Ryan about a mid B tier. He's a good tank. He's not bad at all. And then finally, we got Roadhog. This might be a spicy hot take. I think Hog is low-key really good. He's going to get the top of the B tier, borderline A tier. I think that he's not quite great yet because there are still certain matchups that he's really rough against, like Orisa and Mauga. Wow, words. I also think that with how much Ana's being played, how much Reaper is still being played, Bastion as well, I think it's a bit tough for Hog to keep himself alive. He can fall over really, really quick. Hog has always kind of been a feast or famine tank. If you hit your hooks and get the big kills, you're just dominating. If they bring out all the stops, the Ana, Orisa, Mauga, whatever you name it, Reaper, you're going to have a pretty hard time. You're going to be mainly playing corners and just trying to keep yourself alive, and you're not really able to get a whole lot of value. But Hog is still really good. The one shot is still there. He's still pretty tanky, and his ult is still really good, both at making space and confirming a kill if you can get them in a corner. I think that when Hog gets another micro buff, he will jump up for sure, probably at least to A tier. And if they nerf Orisa at the same time, then Hog is going to be waiting in line probably behind Sig/Mauga in terms of the next meta tank, if that's the direction they go. So that's all the tanks. So I think Orisa's the meta. I think that Ball is struggling. These two are situational. These are all good, and these are great. So that's where I lie again. Again, just my personal opinion. But now we're going to move on to the DPS. And how I'm going to do is I'm going to line the DPS behind the tanks, and then the supports behind the DPS. Usually I take a picture of them on their own, but that's how it'll look when they're all on the board. So just to clarify, so there's no confusion. First off, we have Venture. Venture's good. I think they're good. I'll give them like a solid B tier. I think that Venture is still really good at dominating the up-close matchups against squishies and supports. But Venture definitely is not as durable with the shield nerf. They generate less shield health when they use their abilities. Their ultimate is still okay. They're pretty good at closing the gap again on rangers like your Ashe and your Hanzo and your Widows. So they're still going to be really good into that. And they can brawl. We're in, again, a bit of a brawly, sustaining tank meta, so I think that Venture can fit pretty decently, but I'm not going to give them like an A like I had them at before. I think a solid B is a good spot for Venture right now. Sombra. Oh, sorry, that's Bastion. Yeah, Sombra. I'm not gonna lie to you, Sombra sucks right now. Sombra is having a rough run right now. So she got reworked. You can't see it, I'm doing air quotes. But really what it is a humongous nerf. So what they did with Sombra is they tied her stealth to her translocator. So she no longer has stealth as a passive. Her new passive is the Opportunist, where when you hack someone, you deal 20% more damage to them. So sure, Sombra is actually more lethal against squishies. The issue, though, is getting to them is really, really difficult because they made the Translocator both her tool to go invis and also her tool to escape. And because the cooldown's longer, it's a lot harder for her to even get in to the back line or get to the squishies to get value, to get picks. So you almost have to play her like a Cass or like a soldier, like a Sombra 76. It's weird and it feels really bad. It's not fun. And they honestly they nuked her. They killed Sombra. I think that they need to go back to the drawing board and honestly just revert it because I thought Sombra, as annoying as she could be, was really fun to play. I was picking her up a lot last season. Now she just doesn't even feel worth it. So, unfortunately, Sombra not having a good time. I think she's probably the weakest DPS in the game, and she's not even necessarily terrible in terms of her, abilities, but it's just the actual playing experience is so ass. And she's so easy to chase down because, she has to use her translocate to even go invisible. So if you catch her when she's invisible and reveal her, which doesn't take her out of it, but still reveals her, she's cooked. She's just cooked. Anywho, that aside, moving on to Bastion, I think Bastion's really good. I think Bastion is definitely a lot better this season. He's been pretty for a couple seasons, but he's definitely a lot better. The couple of buffs were nice, like reducing the spread on his turret and increasing his ult charge. Though his ult isn't, that great. Still, getting it more and often is still a net buff. But he pairs really well into the comp speed and run right now. He's really good with Orisa and Mauga. He's really good against Winston. Not too great against Sigma, but he can play with a Sigma, okay, and he's really good against Hog. So I think that Bastion is very viable. He still suffers from his drawbacks, like having a massive hitbox the size of a mountain. Really easily diveable. Doesn't play great against Rangers, but that being said, I do think that Bastion is still very solid. He's in probably one of his better states since he was last meta back in like season, 7, 6. So we give him a solid B tier. Widow, I'm gonna go A tier. I watched Emong's tier list video and he put her in S, and it's making me double think where I have Widow. We'll keep her in A tier though. I've had her floating between the B and the C for like months now. If there is any season to pick up Widow, if you like playing Widow or if you want to just play a sniper character, this is the season to play Widow. Not only because of the mythic, we got the mythic buff. It's a thing, I would say at this point. But this is literally the golden opportunity to pop off on Widow. Because Sombra has been nerfed into the ground, and she was Widow's hardest counter. Also, it's not dive meta, so you're not seeing as much Diva. You're not seeing as much Winston. You're not seeing as much Doom, and definitely not Ball. And so it's a perfect time to thrive for Widow. And on top of that, when there is a Winston, you can just have someone bodyguard you, like your Orisa or, whoever. Just if they're able to get next to you, have them stick with you. Orisa's really good at that because she has no fall off range, so she can actually kind of complement you there. And you're going to pop. And Widow, she's always had that capability of being a server admin. Usually when you think of server admin, you think of server admin Tracer, server admin Sojourn, server admin Cass, but I think server admin Widow is going to show up quite a bit this season. Between the mythic, meaning more people will play her, and less Sombra, meaning it's not going to be a pain in the butt to play her. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't want to put her in S tier because I do think that she's still more than beatable. She has a very low health pool. If you're a better Widow, you can outdo her. But there's still other heroes that can make Widows have a hard time. Like, again, Winston is really good. So if Widow doesn't have backup and is playing the solo angles and she's dove by a Winston, it's going to be kind of tough. Tracer's still really good against her. Venture is actually pretty good against her. And also Ashe, I would also say, is pretty darn good against Widow. Except at long range. Obviously, damage fall-off will kind of hurt the Ashe there. But yeah, Widow, being able to one-shot almost the entire DPS cast except for like what is it, Bastion and Torb on Overload, I think. Yeah, she's back. If she wasn't back already, she's so back. She is popping. She's really strong. If you haven't played Widow in a while and you want to play Widow, pick her up now before it's too late. Soldier, I think Soldier's okay. I think he's good. Oh, good. We'll give him B tier. I think that Soldier is definitely a lot better since they changed armor. He isn't weak against armored targets. When he was weak against armored targets, I had him at like D tier. He was just basically pointless to play. But I do think that Soldier falls off a little bit. I was going to consider giving him a higher B, but Sojourn has risen again. And that's the, another issue, like I said, with Ramatra is why play Ram when you can play ABC? Why play Soldier when you can play Sojourn? She does the same things, but she has better mobility, better impact damage, and it's just, not old school like Soldier is. So yeah, Soldier, he's not bad. Not bad by any means, but he's just decent. He has decent damage, decent ultimate, decent mobility-ish, but he doesn't excel really at any of them. So he's kind of just, he's decent. Probably the best way I can put it. Sojourn. Sojourn has absolutely come back, and maybe I'm jumping the gun on this, but I think that Sojourn is way stronger. I had her at about C tier last season. Maybe B, you could argue, but I definitely think that she is an A tier DPS at least. The buffs that they gave her, with her being able to charge her rail off of the Disruptor shot, and the Disruptor doing more damage, and also your rail takes forever to decay. You're basically never going to lose your rail. It takes so long. Sojourn is just going to constantly have rail, and even though rail, doesn't do the same levels of impact in terms of being able to really just get, tons of instant kills, it's still really good, and if you get it more, you'll still get the kills one way or another. I think that Sojourn is very great right now. I don't want to jump the gun, though, too much and say S tier. I don't think she's quite there yet. I think that's still reserved for a couple other DPS, but I do believe that Sojourn is very, very good. Really great right now with those buffs, so she has come back. She is definitely back, because she was really kind of just non-existent for a good bit ever since they nerfed the railgun way back when. Cass. Cass, this is a tough one. I'm going to say Cass is a high B. Oh, high B. I think he's really good. He's amazing at close mid-range, for sure. But the damage fall-off hurts him a lot, because not being able to really contest as well at the longer ranges, it hurts Cass. It makes heroes like Ashe, Hanzo, Widow just way better against him. Gosh, sorry, I keep having to clear my throat. I think that Cass, is just a demon up close, between the hinder, the raw damage, being able to right-click, and he's also super tanky at 275 HP, combat roll, doing damage reduction too. Yeah, he's still really darn good, and you can actually make a pretty good case for low A, but I'm going to slide him in at the top end of B tier. I think that Cass is really, really good. The damage fall-off ultimately is what kind of kills it for me, and just really not being able to hit much of anything at the longer ranges. In case you don't know, the damage fall-off is like, it starts to fall off at like 25 meters. That's not that long, so yeah, we'll put Cass on the high end of B. Reaper, this might show my metal rank a lot, but I'm going to put Reaper in the S tier. I think Reaper is still dominating. He is still dominating a lot. Just being able to delete squishies and all the 225 HP supports. Plus, he's still tanky as heck at 300 HP. And, he's still being played a whole heck of a lot, reeling from the mythic buff. Also, he, I think, plays better in brawly, comps, because, he can do a hard hit to Mauga, Hog, Orisa, and also play with them. And he's really good against, dive heroes and dive tanks because, again, the raw damage output, the sustain. Um, and his cooldowns are a little better. The TP cast time was huge. Uh, his ultimate, is actually, a lot of people think of his ultimate as being one of the best parts. It's actually one of the weakest parts because it's so easy to counterplay. But I would say that Reaper just still overall is a really dang strong hero, and he hasn't gotten any nerfs for a little while. So I think he's still reeling from uh, all of the positive traction that came his way. I think that Reaper is just insane. I think Reaper is busted still, in my opinion. So he gets an S tier. He is just cleaning house. Genji. Genji. I think Genji's pretty good. I'm giving B's here. Genji obviously isn't going to perform, I think, as well in this kind of meta, but I think he's still good. And especially if you know how to play Genji, you can definitely create opportunities for picks. His poke is better with the armor changes, so that helps him too. But yeah, I don't really have a whole lot to say about Genji. Funny enough, he's one of my favorite heroes to play. But I think that Genji is just kind of middle of the road, solid, B tier, solid DPS. Junkrat, I do think Junkrat is significantly better than he has been for the past couple seasons. Junkrat, being able to output that much raw damage, his ultimate can still be really good, but it is a lot harder to get value with Riptire, I'm not going to lie. But really that sneaky change to the velocity of his grenades, it just feels better, especially if you're a Junkrat connoisseur. It feels better to play Junkrat. So Junkrat, I think, is still really great at creating opportunities for things to happen. I think he's really good at just punishing people that are out in the open. I think he's really good at pummeling tons of damage, metric heck tons of damage into just people who aren't, playing the most safe. I think that, he's in a really good spot. And because the flyers aren't meta like your Echoes and your Pharahs, he has room to kind of grow in. So I give him B tier. Ashe. Ashe, I would say, is very high A. I almost want to throw her up in S, but I do think that Ashe is going to stick in the A tier. She's probably the best hit scan DPS in the game still, but Sojourn is coming for that title. Widow probably won't take it, but Widow is contesting quite well this season. So I think that with Ashe, it's a bit self-explanatory. Bob is a great ult. Dynamite, helps her stack up the damage. She has really good range, really good crit damage. Sure, they did have that nerf to her reload, which is a bit tough. And obviously the non-scope shots do a little less damage. But she's still very, very good. I would actually argue if they didn't have those nerfs, I would probably feel comfortable putting her in S tier. But we're going to say high A tier, like A plus even. I think Ashe is really great. I think she's a very great hero to play right now. And she complements, again, a lot of the comps being ran in the meta. She just plays really well into a lot of them, and even against some of them, because Coach Gun is a really good escape tool. So even if there's a lot of heavy dive, Ashe can be viable still. Tracer is the other S tier DPS. It's honestly, I don't really have to say a whole lot. It's Tracer. Tracer is always going to be insane. She's always going to be able to be meta because she has such a very rewarding skill ceiling. She's one of the hardest, if not the hardest, hero to play DPS wise, but it pays off if you know how to play Tracer. If you're a good Tracer, you win any matchup and probably every matchup. I don't really have to explain it a whole lot. She's just very unique in that way. And yeah, server admin Tracer, even with that little nerf to her damage, can still make it happen. So we'll say S tier for Tracer. Echo. I'm going to give Echo a low A. I think Echo is still very great. Echo, just between all the multiple kinds of fire, copies such a great ult, and the mobility too. She's very hard to play, honestly. Pretty good runner up to Tracer in terms of how hard it is to play this hero. But again, if you're able to reach that skill level with Echo, you can really take over the game. She's very good at that. Again, between her sticky nades, primary left click fire, and the beam, she can do it all. Multiple kinds of fire. That's very unique to her. Now, she is a bit of a glass cannon, at is she 225 HP? I think she might be 225. I can't remember, but either way, she is a glass cannon, but it's very rewarding and it will pay off if you know how to play Echo. So really good Echoes are probably like S tier, but I'll give her a low A. And also with, the amount of hit scan that's good, it is going to be a little bit tough for Echo to be at her primest, but she can still do very, very well, I feel. Hanzo. It's a bit of a toughie, but I'll give him a B, mid to high B, maybe. I think that for Hanzo, it's also, I'm sorry, before I get back to Hanzo, I think I might change my mind on Soldier. I think I'm going to drop Soldier to high C. Sorry, Soldier players, and I mean, actually, I like Soldier too, but I just thought about it, like all the heroes I'm putting in B, and I'm looking at Soldier here, and yeah, we're just going to put Soldier in the C tier. I think that, yeah, he's still, like, not bad. Situationally can be good, but I'm just thinking about all the heroes that are better that can fill Soldier's shoes. Anywho, moving on to Hanzo. So Hanzo got a net buff. His health is brought back up to 250 HP. He has the one shot, but I will admit, like, playing Hanzo doesn't feel great with the long draw time and the smaller projectile. But if you were a OG Hanzo player from preseason 9, you probably don't even notice it. If you're a Hanzo like enjoyer, you're probably fine with it. And you probably make it work. So I think he's pretty good. Being able to one shot is huge. He still has decent damage output with storm arrows. His ultimate can be really good. In ways, again, there is that weird change still where it moves faster. The dragon. So it's not going to be as great of a spacing tool, but you could get some cheeky kills with it. I think that Hanzo is like, I don't know. I can't really say that he's great because I think that there's still a number of ways you can outflank him and just, not like literally flank, but there are plenty of heroes that can outflank him that just, I don't know, do what he's able to do, but can do it better. Even if we're taking, not counting the fact that, not many heroes can one-shot. So we'll leave Hanzo in the mid B tier. I think he's still good. He's still pretty good. He's solid, but I wouldn't say he's like that great. Sim. This is a little controversial. I'm gonna put Sim in the C tier. High C tier, borderline B. I know that Sim is 275 HP with shields and she melts with her beam, but I don't know. I just don't really think that Sim is doing that great. Like, she's not bad at all. She's actually really oppressive if played right, but I don't know. I don't think I'm feeling it with Sim right now. I think that Sim for me is just, it's actually a better meta for Sim too. It's not dive meta. I've had Sim at like A tier, B tier for a while, and ultimately I feel like when I actually put her there and then I play through the season, it's not justifying my placement. I feel like I'm not seeing what I convince myself makes her worthy of a A tier, high B tier to begin with, which in that case is like really great borderline meta to just really, really good hero. I think just she's pretty good in situations, but just I don't know. Sim is really good in certain comps, and certain maps, especially control point maps, are very good for Sim. But I think what it comes down to with Sim is if you rush the Sim, you overwhelm her, she will fall over. And that's kind of the gist of it. And, there's a number of ways to deal with the Sim. So I think that high C tier for now. Unless I see a whole lot of sim down the road, I don't think I'm gonna move her. I think I had her at B tier a week ago, but I'm gonna drop her to C. I think that she's situationally good, but overall it's just she's okay. But I'll put her above Soldier though. Moving on to Pharah. I think that Pharah is still quite good, but definitely no longer the hyper dominant hero that she was back in season. Was it 11? I think it was 11. Yeah, when Pharah was really dominating a lot. So I'll say that Pharah, has still got great burst damage and is very good on a number of maps like Ilios and so and so. I think Oasis is pretty good for her too. Um, but the thing with Pharah, though, is that she is just a lot more killable. Ever since they nerfed her to 225 HP and hit scan has been on the rise, especially like Ashe, who can 2-tap her, it's just a lot harder for Pharah to live long enough to server admin the games and the lobbies. Pharmacy is still very strong, for sure. And Pharah, even without a Mercy Pocket, can still pop off. But it's not as easy for her to really get heavily going with all of that. So because of that, I do think that Pharah is a solid, really good hero in the B tier. But yeah, I don't think that she's A or S by any means anymore. Wow, my throat is already starting to hurt, and we've been talking for 40 minutes. Wow, that was 40 minutes already. That's crazy. Anywho, we're almost there. Excuse me again. 2 more DPS, and then we got the supports to go. Moving on to Torb. Torb, I think, is pretty good. I'm going to go on ahead and put Torb in the B tier. I will put him above Junkrat and Genji. And now, hold up. I'm thinking, do I want to move Genji to C tier? Oh, man, I'm double thinking. I'll think about it later. I'll come back to it. I may move Genji to C tier. Again, I'm just looking at these heroes. But Torb is going to get a B tier because Turret's really good at getting value. Overload is really good for Torb's durability and sustain. Molten Core is still a pretty decent ultimate. And, I think Torb is still really good in certain cases, like dealing with your flankers, like your Tracers, and, well, formerly your Sombras, not so much now. I mean, he's good against her now, but it's just you don't see much Sombra, I feel. And but yeah, Torb is also really good at spamming chokes with the Cheetos, as I call them. So yeah, I think Torb's pretty good. I don't have him too high because I'm not seeing Torb dominating, but yeah, I think he's solid. And then finally, Mei. Mei, I actually have had in the A tier for a little while, but I'm gonna drop her to the B tier, right next to Cass. I think that Mei is still very good at isolating tanks with wall and playing really well around the wall, and Blizzard is still an amazing ultimate, and she's still very durable. The thing, though, with Mei is that she's not quite having the situations where she can be like the pick master, picking off lots of people with icicles and, just really making people's lives a hard time with freeze for the slow effect. But Mei is still really darn effective. It's just I just think the way the meta has shifted, Mei just isn't quite as she just isn't popping off quite as much. I don't know. It's a little weird. I think that it could honestly be me. Maybe Mei's actually still a really darn strong in the A tier for a number of people, but I just think Mei's kind of fallen off. The way that things have changed, Mei just isn't as prominent in terms of picking for what she usually does, which is to isolate and punish. I think we're kind of just in more of a case where a lot of people are playing from range with DPS, like your long range hit scans, or if they're going up close, they're usually just trying to run them down massively with your Cass or your Reaper or something like that. I think that Mei is still fairly well played, in those in those situations. But yeah, I just think that she's, pardon the tangent, I guess, and the yapping. Especially, I'm just trying to like. It's very confusing. I'm still trying to figure it out, but I think that she's just fallen off a little, to put it simply. That being said, now coming back to Genji, I think I'm gonna drop Genji into the C tier. I think I'm gonna drop Genji into the C tier. Again, he's not bad by any means, but I do think that Genji, because I'm just thinking again about what does Genji do, and that's he's not able to really dive as much. He's mainly kind of poking, but other heroes can poke better, and other heroes can dive in this current meta a little better than Genji. So we're gonna put Genji in the C tier. I think situationally he can still be really good, but I think that I might need a little more before I drop him or jump him back up to B tier. So that's crazy. I'm just really thinking it all out. All right, that's the DPS. That's the longest section. Now we're on to the supports. We're almost there. Starting off with Moira. It's pretty easy. I think Moira's a B tier. I think that she's just kind of like solid. Just solid hero. Good healing output. Cole's really solid. Fade's a good escape tool. She does decent damage and can be pretty good in certain, cases. Like if you want to be a little more DPS-y, you have the DPS Moira, the Depoira, as we joke. But I do think that Moira is a demon in metal ranks, but when you get higher, you realize that Moira really is quite killable, and it's really just about tracking Fade. That's kind of what ultimately, like, I think reality checks people's. When you track Fade, Moira dies really easily. So she could still be very effective if kept alive, but that's what it does come down to, is how you use Fade. If you use Fade well, you're going to pop off. If you don't, you're going to get punished. So solid B tier for Moira, I would say. Lucio. Lucio, I will give a high B tier. I'm tempted to throw him in A, but I think for now I'll keep him in B. I think that his speed utility is still very strong, but I do think that Lucio, it's a little tough for Lucio right now, I feel, because with how much raw damage is put out, I do think that he, obviously he doesn't do a lot of healing. So he has to make up for it with the speed utility and what he can kind of create there. He is able to do a lot more with Boop because of the tank knockback being reduced this season. Or late last season. I can't remember when they changed that. I think it was late last season. I could be wrong. But anywho, I would say that for Lucio, he's still very good, though. He's not bad by any means. Mercy. I'm going to throw Mercy in the high C tier. I think Mercy actually can still do very well with pocketing certain hit scan DPS. I see a lot of Mercy Ashe, Mercy Widow, Mercy Sojourn, Mercy Cass as well. But, and of course you'll see Pharmacy too. But I do think that Mercy is going to have a bit of a tough time this season because, again, with how much raw damage is output. Now, her issue isn't so much as the healing. She actually does a decent amount of healing, but you have Lucio who can do some good damage, but he doesn't have the heals. Mercy can do the heals, but she don't get damage out of a Mercy, like, really. I mean, you can do Battle Mercy for the memes, but it's only going to take you so far. So I think that for Mercy, it's just a bit of a tougher season for her, but she's not bad at all. I still think that she can be very, very solid situationally. Brig. I do think that Brig is actually really still very darn strong, but I'm going to throw her in the A tier. I'll throw her in the high A tier. I think that Brig did get a little bit of a nerf with the repair pack cooldown being upped a bit, but it doesn't hurt her that significantly, I feel. I think that Brig is still very, very strong and will complement a lot of these comps still. She isn't a brawl support. If you play her like a Reinhardt, you're going to get destroyed, but if you play her like a defensive support, like kind of keeping your other support alive, that she does really well, and I think she'll still be able to do that in this meta. But we'll give her an A tier. I think that she's pretty great. Juno. We don't talk about Juno. No. I think I underrated her criminally. I had her in a high B tier, so what they did was they nerfed her fall off range. very, very much, so she can't play from far, far back. And they also slightly decreased her healing, but I'm still seeing so much Juno, and she's still popping like crazy. I'm gonna keep her in the S tier. I think I underrated her so bad, putting her in B tier, high B tier. Juno is still getting it done. She's going to stay in the S tier for me. Why do I think she stays there? She still can do what she's been able to do really well. She has great mobility. She still has good numbers. She can still do sneaky good amounts of damage. But more than that, her ultimate. Her ultimate is really kind of what makes her character kind of peak the next level. Like, Ray is actually probably the best support ultimate in the game, almost like next to Kitsune. But I feel like Ray is actually kind of slowly overtaking Kitsune, because Kitsune is great for the speed and the cooldown reduction, but with Ray you get the damage boost and the insane amount of healing, and it lasts just as long, I think, roughly. And it does so much. It does so much. So I think Juno is an S tier support still, and until they tweak the ultimate, I actually don't think she'll change much. I think I definitely overreacted to her nerfs and put her down way too low. She's an S tier support. She's insane. She's still very darn good. Zen. Zen is also much better this season. I think that Zen definitely plays way better in this season because it's not dive. Zen is just really not good into dive because he just dies so easily. But poke brawl can do a lot better with. The Discord orb is going to be it's huge at just melting the big stainy tanks. You know, obviously Zen being able to get Trank quicker is pretty solid. It's pretty efficient for getting him and his allies out more often, even though Trank can still be a bit of a cosmetic ult at times. Yeah, I think that Zen is quite great this season, but we are going to keep him in the kind of the low A tier. Is where I'll put Zen. The other S tier support, in my opinion, is BAP. I think BAP actually is insane. So they gave him a sneaky micro buff, quote unquote, but it's actually a ridiculously disgusting buff. So what they did was they reduced his primary fire recoil by 30%. Keep in mind, his recoil wasn't even really that bad. Now he's basically BAP 76. He doesn't miss. You do not miss on BAP. And you might be thinking, okay, well, you just don't miss on BAP. What's the big deal? You hit more shots. So you're hitting more shots, which means you can confirm more kills, which I've definitely felt, which means you build your ult quicker, and you also put more pressure on the team easier. And BAP already has decent burst damage, so the fact you're hitting more burst damage, you're just an absolute monster. And he didn't need it. I love BAP, but to be completely honest with you, he didn't need the buff. I don't know why they did that. It's crazy. But people's wrists, I guess, were hurting too much from that recoil, so BAP gets a very solid S tier. Very great support to play right now. Now moving on to Ana. I realize now I've been overrating Ana just a smidge for some time. I've been giving her S tier quite a bit, and I do think that it's not exactly unreasonable, but I'll come down to earth a little, and I'll give her a very high A tier. A for Ana. I think that Ana is just obviously a great support with her utility. Purple, Biotic Nade being able to now keep up with the DPS passive, but the purple is huge, sleep is huge, Nano's a great ult. She has great hit scan, damage, no fall off either with that too, I think. And, obviously the only thing that hurts her is her lack of mobility, but she can make up for that with great cooldown usage and positioning. So she's still an amazing support. But I will bring her down a little bit to A. I think it's a great season now to be playing Ana, though, to be fair. But I will bring her down to A. I may actually give her probably the most reasonable S tier placement when Juno is nerfed, or if BAP is nerfed. But for now, we give Ana A. We're also going to throw Kiri in A. I mean, Kiri, I don't think cannot be A, to be honest. I don't really have to explain a whole lot with Kiri. She's kind of just always good. Kitsune is always a great ult. Suzu exists. TP for getting out is huge. The kunai damage. is huge. Her healing output is really good. That's probably all I gotta say about Kiri. Just really good. And then Iari. This is a tough one. I think Iari's a solid B tier. I don't think Iari is bad at all, and that's B tier isn't bad. B tier is really good. But I do think that Iari falls off a little bit because when it comes to her bread and butter, she does good healing output with the pylon and the beam. Her ultimate is still very good, and her damage is still quite strong for her. The only thing, though, is I do think that BAP has taken over a bit in terms of the, when people pick a support that are DPS players, they usually see them roll out like on Yari or BAP. I think that BAP is kind of like taken over that mantle a little bit. Ana, I think, is a good shout too. But I would say that Yari just kind of falls off a bit. Similar to, I guess, kind of with Mei. Yari hasn't gotten bad at all. She's just kind of fallen off for now. That could change, though, very easily. But for now, I think putting her next to Lucio and Moira is a fair enough placement in my mind. And last but not least, Mr. Lifeweaver. Mr. Wifeweaver. D tier. D tier. I like playing Lifeweaver. I call him Lifeweaver just naturally. I like playing Lifeweaver. I do think he's fun. I do think the changes they made were good quality of life changes, but I can admit he's trash. He's really not that good. Tree is probably the best part of his kit because it's a really good ult. Life Grip is trolly. I realize now it can be good, but it's more often than not, it's trolly. His damage isn't really worth it. He's a heal botter without the grace of amazing movement like a mercy or damage boost or whatever. And I don't know, like Petal is better, the passive heal is better, but Lifeweaver just really isn't that good. He just kind of sucks. It's like, why play a heal body? If you want to do heal body but good, play Juno. Or, play Juno. She does the numbers, but can do way more. And he doesn't have the damage to keep up with all these other supports, except for maybe Mercy, can do way more damage than a Lifeweaver. And if you're looking for good utility for like kind of getting people out, Lucio's speed is a lot better. On a sleep, gets someone out by sleeping who they're being attacked by. I don't know, if you're looking to really hit a hard hit someone, even Brig Mace Boop is better than Life Grip in a sense. It's weird. I don't know. Lifeweaver just ain't that good. But anywho, that is the tier list. So here is your S tier, being the most meta in my opinion. Really great. These are all really great picks. These are all very good picks. These are situational to me, and these are the ones that are struggling. And we are now capping at 58 minutes. Okay. Well, we'll go to an hour because I like to be particular with my numbers. So I want to thank you all again for listening and watching. If you took the time to hear this all out, I yapped for such a long time. I haven't done this in a while, but I've wanted to. So again, let me know if you have any thoughts of your own. If you think that I rated a hero poorly, put it in the comments. And pardon again my periods of getting maybe a little stuttered or mind blanking, particularly with like Mei. I was just like, sometimes it can be a little bit of a loss for words. But I do think that overall, we're in a bit of a toughie, meta-wise, in my opinion. This hasn't been my favorite season, but we'll ride it out as we usually do. Let me know if you're also excited about anything coming up, whether that's 6v6 test coming next season, the new tank being revealed later this season, and getting that playtest. Who do you want to get a Jade skin for next if you're playing comp? What mode are you playing? Do you like Juggenstein's Lab? Let me know. Whatever you're feeling. I got 50 seconds left still. But yeah, it's been fun. As always, I don't really post consistently. It's a bit sporadic, but I appreciate anything and everything. Do continue taking care of yourselves. It is that time of the year, by the way. It's getting cold out, so stay warm, stay comfortable. Hashtag buff Reaper, hashtag buff Roadhog for those of you all mine that see this that are friends of mine, buff Hog and Reaper. It just needs to happen. And I'm gonna get so screwed for that. Anywho, y'all take care of yourselves. I'll see y'all around next time. Maybe I'll try to do this more often. All right. Until the next time. Take care and stay awesome as always. Boy.